Okay, dear colleagues, it's a pleasure to welcome you in Rome today for this G20 summit. First of all, I'd like to say that it's great to see you, all of you here, after a difficult few years for the global community. The pandemic has kept us apart, as it did with all our citizens. And even before, we faced protectionism, unilateralism, nationalism. But the more we go with all our challenges, the more it is clear that multilateralism is the best answer to the problems we face today. In many ways, it's the only possible answer. From the pandemic to climate change to fair and equitable taxation, going it alone is simply not an option. We must do all we can to overcome our differences. And we must rekindle the spirit that led to the creation of this group. Almost 2 years since the start of the pandemic, we can finally look at the future with great or with some optimism. Successful vaccination campaigns and coordinated action from governments and central banks have allowed the global economy to rebound. Many of our countries have launched recovery plans to boost growth, reduce inequalities, promote sustainability. Together, we are building a new economic model, and the world will be all the better for it. And the world will be all the better for it. However, we must be aware of the challenges we face collectively. The pandemic is not over, and there are startling disparities in the global distribution of vaccines. In high-income countries, more than 70% of the population has received at least one dose. In the poorest ones, this percentage drops to roughly 3%. These differences are morally unacceptable and undermine the global recovery. We are close to meeting the WHO's target of vaccinating 40% of the global population by the end of 2021. Now, we must do all we can to reach 70% by mid-2022. We must also continue to invest in research, eliminate trade barriers affecting COVID-19 vaccines, and enhance predictability in their delivery. And we need to strengthen supply chains while expanding vaccine manufacturing capacity at local and regional level. As a G20 presidency, Italy has worked to promote a more equitable recovery. The Global Health Summit in Rome saw countries and companies make generous vaccine pledges for poorer countries. We must make sure we honor them now. We reached a historic agreement for a fairer and more effective international tax system. We oversaw the allocation of $650 billion in the new special drawing rights and endorsed the possibility of redistributing them to the countries that are most in need. These results are a powerful reminder of what we can achieve collectively. We must encourage us to be just as ambitious in all the areas where we work together. It's now my pleasure to give the word to Saudi Arabia's King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. There's a video message here from the King from the King of Saudi Arabia. Thank you. Please. Can you hear me? Yes? Are you okay? We should start. Again, we're a little late. Dear colleagues, small and medium enterprises are the bedrock of many of our countries, including my own. Our economies thrive on the ingenuity and hard work of their employees and entrepreneurs. SMEs create jobs, innovate, pay taxes. We must do all we can to support them and help them grow. The pandemic took a heavy toll on SMEs. They faced a sharp drop in revenues, which led to acute liquidity shortages. Governments and central banks acted quickly to prevent a sharp surge in bankruptcies, and new technologies and digital services help smaller businesses adapt and survive the crisis. However, the pandemic left many behind, including informal workers, rural dwellers, and smaller businesses. During the pandemic, they struggled to find new customers because of their lower digital literacy. As we recover from this crisis, governments need to help SMEs become more competitive and reap the full benefits of digitalization. Italy's G20 presidency endorses the Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion to promote the use of digital tools and protect the SMEs. Women entrepreneurs were among the hardest hit by the economic downturn. They faced more limited access to loans than men and shouldered a larger share of domestic work at a time of widespread school closures. Italy has put female empowerment at the core of its G20 presidency. There can be no rapid, fair, and sustainable recovery if we forget about half of the world. Together, we've stepped up the G20 commitment to counter to gender inequality in the workforce, promote female leadership, and remove all barriers to women's full participation in our societies and economies. We have promoted women's and girls' study of the so-called STEM subjects and more equal distribution of domestic chores between women and men. A just society begins at home and in a workplace. It's now my pleasure to leave the floor to Her Majesty Queen Máxima of the Netherlands, United Nations Secretary General Special Advocate for Inclusive Finance for Development and honorary patron of the G20 Global Partnership for Financial Inclusion. And I thank her once again for having accepted my invitation to participate in this important event. Please, Queen.
Thank you, Mr. Draghi. Meeting small and medium-sized entrepreneurs around the world, I'm very often filled with admiration. Their commitment, perseverance, and passion inspire me greatly. We all acknowledge the tremendous contribution that SMEs make to our societies and economies, providing millions of families with an income. We depend on them for more equitable and sustainable growth. They're also the main drivers of innovation. SMEs contribute 2/3 of national income and more than half of employment worldwide. Yet, about half of them do not have access to credit, and their access to markets and infrastructure continues to be a challenge. And these are just the former ones. Unsurprisingly, SMEs are among the worst hit by COVID-19. The effects vary, of course, depending on sector and size, but women-owned SMEs and the smaller and informal enterprises suffered the most. We are united in our efforts to prevent poverty, inequality, and strengthen sustainability. And it's the SMEs that can help us the most in this endeavor. But are we doing enough to support them? Do we consider women's specific needs? do we provide them with the right tools that enable them to increase their productivity and build back stronger, not only for their sake, but for the sake of us all? I could say that more could be done. While we know that SMEs are diverse and should not be treated just as one group, I would like to point out 3 areas of action that apply to all. First, digitization. SMEs lag in the adoption of digital technologies. This results in the loss of opportunities. And this is a challenge for both advanced and developing economies. Experience shows that digitization makes businesses more efficient and help them even to cope with the growing problems of labor shortages in many countries. It also opens up new markets. One of the many inspiring examples I saw was in Indonesia. It's called Gojek. Gojek is a ride-hailing app which uses its digital ecosystem to help small businesses digitize their inventory management, marketing, payments, credits, and sales. Now suddenly, these SMEs are connected to the larger world. Many of them make a leap forward and expand their business beyond their brick-and-mortar presence. Of course, innovations like this require widespread access to digital public goods and the development of digital skills. This brings me to the second area of action: investments in skills and capabilities. Everywhere, entrepreneurs, employees, and the education sector have to adapt to new technologies and market conditions. Matching supply and demand on the labor market is a dire necessity. And it does not stop at schools. Everyone needs to continuously develop and learn. This is easier said than done. Therefore, it is essential that we reflect on the best way to support lifelong development among the workforce. In the Netherlands, we are starting to work towards a lifelong development program. It encourages learning and developing during one's career by providing training, budget, and advice. Of course, this requires investment, but the cost of these measures is a fraction of the added value we can generate. And this brings me to the third area of action: access to finance. This is one of the most cited obstacles facing SMEs to grow their businesses. SMEs need a range of financial services: payments, equity, short and long-term debt, savings, and insurance, especially for startups and firms with large growth prospects. This could be from a bank, cooperative, lending platform, or fintech. But to get there, we need to improve the whole finance ecosystem, such as credit reporting systems and insolvency regimes, and of course, seize the opportunities of technology. The British fintech Credit Enable helps SMEs by reducing the hassle and costs it takes to get a loan. Using data analytics, it matches small businesses with the most appropriate loan product and at the best rate. We have to have more of these examples. In conclusion, strong SMEs are essential for inclusive, equitable, and sustainable growth. The COP26 climate ambitions and the UN SDGs urgently need resilience and productive SMEs to support these challenges. Therefore, we need to boost SMEs' capabilities and prospects. We must help them thrive by embracing digitization, investing in skills, and improving the finance ecosystem. It is more than worth its while. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Highness.